let's thank. Oh, here you go. Let's thank. Ta-da. Thank you. And good evening, everyone. How many people do we have watching us? Can you see online there, Emily?
Few.
Oh, 5,000. Welcome to you all. We are so excited to have you here logging in for what's going to be, I think, one of the more amazing and enlightening Voices from the Street sessions. I'm really excited to be in the company of Josh Macey and Liz Gall. But before I introduce them, Liz is going to give us our acknowledgement to country.
Thanks, John. I would like to acknowledge that Wayside Chapel and we tonight are on country of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and that probably everyone watching us tonight as well is on Aboriginal country. And I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you very much. Now, without further ado, let me introduce our two expert panellists here, Josh and Liz. Welcome
nice to meet
tonight. Yeah, thanks for coming in.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
All right, I'm just going to throw some questions out, and you guys, I'm sure, will be at home will be really blown away by some of the wisdom and the answers that you're going to hear tonight. And I'll try and shut up as much as possible, but then I've got to try and keep these two from talking for 2 hours. Because you guys have known each other a little while. How long have you known each other?
I'm not sure. I think only a few years.
years.
Yeah, but we've done a few bits and
Big
pieces
projects.
together. Yeah.
Look, you both led incredibly challenging but also remarkable lives. And before we dive in, let's take a little bit of a moment to celebrate your accomplishments. So, how about we just jump in? You know, where are you currently at in your life? What's happening? And what are you most proud of right now?
For me right now, I'm raising a family. Couldn't be any prouder about that. Working every day, drug free, got a home, a job, a good partner, and a healthy little baby.
Excellent. I'm going to start crying. All right.
Where's the tissues?
I know, right? Tissues for me, please. That's beautiful. Liz, we had a good chat today.
We did have a good chat today, and it's funny how answers can change depending on the space that you're in and the people you're around and connection and that type of thing. And what I spoke about today was that life is challenging. Life has changed so much, and there's so many good things going on. I'm working full time in 2 jobs that I love. Starting a coaching business. I've got my 2 children and my grandchild. How am I a grandmother? I've got the grey hair going on there, and it's that I've made it to the stage, that I get to have grey hair and I get to have a grandchild, because when I was here, didn't feel like that was on the cards. So life has changed dramatically, and it's not always easy, but it's.
You said something earlier when we were speaking on the phone that, when I said, we'll ask you what are you most proud of in your life right now.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you said?
It's like I get up and I front up each day. When things are hard, and I've had the last few years have been extremely challenging for me with different things going on in my life. And so for me at the moment, it's like I've done some amazing things, like absolutely brilliant things, but it's like get out of bed each day and I face the world, and it's like some days it's like I dread the day. It's like, I've got to get up and I have to do these things, and how am I going to do that, and how am I going to cope with the world today? And yet I still do it, because what else can you do?
Well, that's so powerful, and the wisdom there and the insight is, and you also said you get to go to bed each night knowing that you've lived to your values.
Yes, yeah. Very, very different to when I was on the street here and doing things that I didn't want to do, and that's exactly what life is.
Well, now you're helping so many other people turn their lives around.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing.
Oh, you both are doing that just by telling your stories and telling it honestly, We know that life's no fairy tale, right? And unfortunately we grow up in a system that still tells us about the happily ever after. And we know that there are still struggles and challenges, but how to still front up and live by your values, and to keep putting one foot in front of the other, is just is the story we need to be telling, and that's something that's powerfully lived out in your lives. Now let's dip back a few years. Maybe we'll start with you, Josh. When did you first come to Wayside, and what brought you here, mate?
Oh, I've been coming to Wayside since I was about 18, maybe a bit younger.
You're 21 now, aren't you? No.
Yeah, 21 plus a couple of years.
How old are you?
37. So, yeah, 18, I sort of turned to heroin, brought me to King's Cross. And when you're stranded on the streets of King's Cross, you soon find Wayside. It's been a place that I've visited time after time for a lot of years. I'd go off for a couple of years, I'd go home, back out west, and before you know it, things go to shit. You end up back on the drugs, you end up back in Sydney, and sure enough, back at Wayside. And then you sort of get things back on track again and sort of disappear from Wayside, no one sees you for a while, and then you hit rock bottom and back you come.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that, because you might not know this, but Josh's mum's online. So hi, Mum.
Hi, Mum.
You warned her that you're going to be...
Yes.
And isn't that amazing? That your mum's sitting there watching where you are today. Like that's fabulous.
How beautiful is that? And she's just as proud of you as you're proud of this little family you're raising here today. Liz, so when did you first come here, and
so I just sort of only known Josh a few years. We must have crossed paths because
Yeah.
I'm the same age as Josh, and I got up here at 18 as well. So
we're a familiar face.
look, the memories are a bit hazy sometimes. So yeah, I was 18 when I kind of left home at 15, and then I made my way to the cross around 17, 18, and yeah, I was on and off homeless, and there used to be a stairway, and I'd sometimes go up the stairs and sleep on this little balcony that was in the old Wayside building, and it was, like I say, times now are challenging, but it was really hard times being a young woman asleep on the streets. And I met my son's father on a milk crate at the fountain, and so Wayside was a place where I just got to come and be, where there wasn't the police harassment that there was on the streets, where there wasn't people walking past, judging and looking down on with comments. It was just a space where I was able to come and be, and I was writing, the depths of addiction. I was on methadone, I was doing sex work. It was just a really messy time for me, and Wayside was a great space to be able to come.
Oh, it's good to hear that it was a place that you could come and escape from the kind of the wildness of life.
You just felt safe here.
Yeah.
It was always a place where you felt safe.
Tell us more a bit about that.
Well, Wayside's just, whatever you're going through at the time, when you get to Wayside, there's other people that are trying to take a moment to step away from the problems in their life at that time too. And so yeah, you'll get the occasional drama at Wayside, but everyone sort of shuts it down real quick, because normally everyone that's at Wayside is there to get away from that at that point in time. They've walked off the street to get away from it. And it's just a place where you can recharge your batteries, start getting a bit of food into you, get a little bit of health into you.
We were just having a joke, and I wouldn't normally ask this, but we're mates. How much do you weigh now, and how much did you weigh?
Oh, right now
Probably the lowest.
I weigh about 93 kilos now. I think I was like 75 a couple of years ago.
I think you were less than 75.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So what was going on in your life at the time, and what challenges were you facing?
At what point?
When you were on the street.
On the street, the challenges that caused me to be on the street. Number of problems. Number of times too. It's not always the same problem. First time I came to Sydney was on the streets for a decent length of time. Everything in my life was just failing in Mudgee. I'd been on drugs, been off drugs, been on drugs, off drugs. Nothing was working out, relationships weren't working out. And I guess I felt like I needed to see my father. And I didn't want to accept that he was gone because he'd passed away when I was 18. So I actually, without planning it, I sort of found myself sleeping in a tunnel across the road from where he worked. And I slept in that tunnel for about a year, looking at everyone's faces going through that tunnel at St James Station, hoping to see my dad. And I think part of that was because I sort of blamed myself when he passed away. Just because, like, I didn't go see him for my 18th, and I felt like that might have caused him to be a bit more depressed and to drink a little bit more. And it was only 6 weeks after my 18th that he actually got hit by a car and got killed walking home from the pub. And I was in Mudgee, and he was living in Sydney. And so of course I didn't come and see him and sort of put it off. I just felt like maybe that's what caused him to be that little bit more depressed and drink it. And I know now that obviously it's not, but like, yeah, so sort of blame myself for that. That was a bit of a burden to carry as well. That's a big part of why I started using heroin and that. I didn't want to feel better, I just wanted to feel nothing. Like, I didn't want to feel guilt, I didn't want to feel pain, didn't want to feel anything. It wasn't to feel better, like, I just didn't want to feel anything. And then that's why I sort of started using drugs, and then on and off the drugs, but yeah, eventually I just hit breaking point and I ended up across the road from his work looking for him.
Thank you.
That's hard to talk about.
Yeah, thanks. Brother. Liz, you've spoken a bit in other forums about your journey. Are you up for?
Yeah. Look, like I said, I left home at 15, and you know, life at home wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best either. And so I left home at 15, as you know, not many teenage girls do, and basically headed straight to the streets, you know. And at that point, I was just smoking pot, and very quickly I got in with an older crowd and people who were using harder drugs and shooting up. And so I started injecting at 16, and you know, very quickly progressed. And yeah, I didn't know how to. I didn't like myself very much. I didn't like some of my family very much, but I think a lot of it was, you know, drugs gave me something. They kind of took me away from myself. It's very much like, for me, substances, I think, were always about self-medication. It was like, I need to feel different to be able to cope and survive and be okay in this world, because I didn't feel like I was okay as I was, you know. And you know, my time at Wayside, like in this area, I mean, most of my using in King's Cross from 18 to 26, I was, you know, I was here for most of that. And you know, violent relationships and sex work, and you know, and now I can go, I have no issue with sex work, but I didn't want to be doing it. It wasn't safe, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't what I wanted to be doing. And so it was this space of, well, I'm using drugs to kind of numb myself, or to be up or to be down, just to be different to me. And then the things that I'm doing to be able to use drugs are causing me to hate myself more, you know. So it's that kind of constant, how do you get out of that space, you know? How do you, for me, you know, stop using drugs and get out of that space when everything you're doing just makes you feel more guilt and shame and pain. And I had my son when I was 20 years old, and I dragged him around King's Cross. He was on the pamphlet once, me and him, when he was a baby, pamphlet of Wayside Chapel. And it was a beautiful photo, and you know, but he got dragged around here, and Chantel and Elma, thank you so much, Chantel. There's too many other people to name, so I'll stop there. But they just, you know, this was like family here. you know, I was able to come here and sit with him in the stroller, and Chantel would like give him presents and the little 20-cent lolly bags, and just, it was like, and I'd go to Graham and I'd get money for nappies.
Yeah.
Like, you know, just, it was a devastating, desperate, degrading time in my life, you know, and yet there was still that community here, you know, and yeah.
You guys have both come so far since then, and you both have spoken quite powerfully about using, not to get high, but just to get numb, right, and to not feel some of those feelings that were going on, and just like to explore what was that moment or process. Can you describe where you decided to make some changes that have lasted for quite a while now too?
For me, well, the last time I had a heroin addiction, I was actually asleep out the front of Wayside Chapel at the time. I'd been camping out there. There was an old Koori bloke called Uncle Cuddy, Les, who was camping with me, and he didn't use drugs, but he was a drinker, and he was camping out there with us. And a fellow walking past stopped, one of the locals stopped and called me over and handed me $50. And I asked Uncle if he could watch my bag while I ducked around the main street to see someone. And he said, "All right, son," and he cried. He didn't say not to go score or anything. And I saw the tears in his eyes. And that day I got around the main street and I found someone with some gear and I went to buy it. And I just couldn't let go of the money. I just instantly started thinking about Les back here crying. And I said to the guy, "Don't worry about it." And I come back, and for the next 2 weeks I went through major withdrawals out here laying on the deck. And like, I was a mess. I literally shit my pants and everything. Like, I was going through the horrors and had that money in my pocket the whole time. And yeah, from then I didn't get off the streets straight away. That was sort of a turning point in my life. After that, my time on the streets wasn't as much focused on the drugs and just trying to survive. I sort of started focusing my energy on helping other people on the streets. And I don't know, I guess I got carried away doing that because I ended up quite busy.
We would always say, "You just help yourself for 5 seconds. Stop bringing people in, taking blankets, taking clothes." You were Santa Claus of the streets there for a few years.
Yeah, but eventually COVID happened for me. I think that was a godsend. Like, when COVID happened, there was no longer anyone on the streets to be looking after, and I could finally got a chance to move on. I met a beautiful girl, settled down, started sleeping indoors. That took a bit to get used to. Started using blankets, which was a huge adjustment for me. I had a phobia of blankets most of the time I was on the streets.
You up for telling us a bit about that? Or?
Yeah, I don't mind. It's
Parramatta Park, right?
yeah, I was in Parramatta Park. I was asleep one night. There was no one around. I was on my own. I didn't really know anyone in the area or anything. I was just passing through the area. And I woke up to being kicked in the back of my head and my lower back at the same time. And as I tried to get up, I couldn't. I was being held down. I couldn't get out of my sleeping bag, and I could hear people yelling in Arabic all around me. And then they just started to kick me and stomp me. And there was just nothing I could do about it. It's like my blankets just slowly filled up with blood as I lost consciousness. I woke up being raced up to Westmead Hospital in the backseat of someone's car. They sped over a speed bump and it sort of startled me. I woke up, spent a couple of days in Westmead Hospital. But weirdly, I didn't have a phobia of people after that. I had a phobia of blankets because I kept telling myself, if only I didn't have the blankets, I could have got up and had a crack.
I remember I'd see you out front freezing with no blanket.
Yeah, so from that point on, winter,
Jackets
summer.
and all, but no blanket.
Yeah, I just couldn't, I could curl up on concrete all year round without a blanket. I just adapted to it. But now I sleep in a bed with blankets. And
my favourite photo of you is you sitting in bed with a blanket with Zell.
That was at the hospital before we even left with him.
Was that the baby?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I love that photo. Yeah.
Somehow he got the same shape and pattern sleeping bag as anything in the hospital.
Yeah.
I don't know how you managed to pull that one off. Really came beautiful. Yeah. These.
Oh, I don't like.
I know we're all like, you can ask him more questions, and also you at home, if you've got some questions you want to send through, please remember to type them into the chat, and Emily will pass them through as well.
I'm just like so many things going through my head listening to you speak, and I remember the first time I bumped into you when you had your teeth done.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then started seeing you putting on weight, and you're telling me you're working, and then I bumped into you guys, and you're like, I'm having a baby, and it's like, oh my God, like I love this stuff. I love, I just think, at any point, at every point in our lives, we are so worthy of love and compassion and respect. And I love the people from the cross, and I've got this really special place in my heart for people from the cross. And when I see them doing well, and I go, like, even though I don't know all the individual stories, I know the stories. I
We know
know
they've
the
been through hell.
feelings. I know the, listening to some of that story and kind of going, we don't do the things we do because we're bad people and because we're criminals, and because you don't keep using drugs when you're going through stuff like that, just because I feel like it. It's like, for me anyway, it's just this need to,
There's a solidarity and a love and an understanding that the street family had. That so none of us could ever even get close to knowing.
they're my people. They're my people. Still, like over 10 years later, I'm like, it's still my people.
We've hit rock bottom on a different level
Yeah.
to what most will get to experience, luckily.
Yes. Yeah, certainly. Undoubtedly, brother. Absolutely. And the lessons and the way you live your lives inspires us to do better, to be better members of our communities, better members of our families, and better people who are just trying to make this world a better place just by you guys living your life. Now, here's the question I want to ask is, what made a difference for you when you were at your lowest through the people you would meet at places like Wayside? As someone who's involved here as a minister like Graham and our people here and our volunteers and our whole community, what are some of the things we should be doing more of? And what are some of the things we could probably be doing less of?
One-on-one conversations. Just not trying to do something, just chatting, getting to know us, talking to us. Because, every person's different. Every person needs something different. Every person needs to hear something different. But unless you hear them, you're not going to know what it
That's
is.
a risk, right? For most of our viewers, people who are logged in, we're caught up in our own lives day to day, getting from A to B and getting shopping, getting to work, getting to school, and we see people who are out there who are doing it tough, and there's a bit of fear, isn't there?
Yeah.
And you're just saying, just take that risk.
Take it.
Take that.
It's a simple way to change someone's life for a day. To stop and talk to a homeless person and just let them feel like a human being again for a moment.
Yeah.
It's something they will miss. It's like the biggest thing they will miss. And without that, they won't break the cycle.
Look, I think that for me, one of the biggest things that you do so well is that meeting people where they're at. Like, I just can't speak highly enough of that. People are so individual, and you don't know where somebody's going to be at different points, and just having those conversations and being patient, and like, we all have judgments, but actually, for me, I work in community services, and I'm a peer support worker, and it's very much my thing is like, where are they at right now, today, in this moment when I'm with them? Not what did they say they wanted to do last week and they haven't done it yet. Oh, okay, what's happened, what's going on for you today? What do you want to do today? Do you just want to have a conversation? And during that conversation, if there's things that they want to do that come up, if you have the power to do that, and they want to, act on that immediately if it's possible, because that, like for me, it's that window of opportunity when someone's in that space and you don't know, like Josh said, you don't know, different people are going to hear different things, and you don't know when that, you might say something and they might kind of click onto that. So keep having the conversations, and it's not so much about the content of them. Of course that's important, but it's just sitting down and being with. And I actually, on the way here, and I'm a very emotional person, but on the way here I stopped near Kirketon Road at the lights, and someone was walking past the cars, not even washing windows, just with his beanie out, Yes, dude. And I'm like, I've got cash. I haven't had cash for so long because of COVID, and I had cash in my purse, and I pulled out $10, and I'm like, he wasn't even up to me yet, and I'm like, and he's like, holy mackerel, thank you so much. And he was so excited, and it wasn't like, it was like, all right, it was $10, but it was, I felt like he was just appreciating someone caring enough. That was from the way he reacted, it wasn't like, oh yeah, $10, that's going to get me this much closer. It was, somebody cares. Yeah. That was the sense that I got, and it doesn't have to be giving money, it just say hello, have a conversation, smile, look at them.
All right, so have we got any more? I am getting old. Sorry, Emmy, I'm going to have to get you to flow that question up there. This is great. Here we go. This is a comment, is it, from Emma?
Question.
Emma Bourne. Oh, Emma, hello. How are you? Oh, we haven't seen you in so long. So I can't quite read the full question there. Here's Josh. You have always been someone I have had a lot of respect for, and you have never judged me. What's the next steps for you, mate? Remember Emma?
Yeah. Next steps for me. Should we bring Zenith out here?
Yeah, well, it's up to you, your lovely visit. I'll tell you my favourite moment while Josh gets this. This comes from 2 weeks ago. I live in Marrickville, and I was heading to my gym at 5:30 a.m. and all of a sudden my phone starts ringing, and it's Josh. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going wrong? Is there a crisis? So I pick up the phone and he goes, idiot, look, I'm on the bus, I'm off to work.
Hey buddy.
And then you sign up and said, I love you. Can you introduce this fella to us?
This is my little man, Zenith. He's 3 months old. And raising him is the next big thing in my life. And at the moment, he's my motivation to get up, go to work every day, to do everything I need to do properly. And he's my everything. Him and his mum. They are my life and my future.
Oh my goodness, that's so powerful and beautiful. True. Oh, I wasn't expecting to be so emotional. Liz, that's a good question actually. What are your next steps at the moment? What are your current challenges?
Current challenges are just life. Just navigating the ups and downs of life. My current challenges, but next steps. So I'm working full time. I've just finished a life coaching course. I've set up my website on my own.
What's the website for your own business, please?
Awkward. lizgalcoaching.com.au.
Can we put that in the comments, please?
Check it out, people. It's worth it.
Public speaker, life coach.
Yes. And I'm quite new, so my prices are not too bad at the moment. Getting quick. Look, there's so many things I want to do. Like I said, I work in peer work, and I also work at a peak body organisation for drug and alcohol services across New South Wales, and it's kind of where my passion is. And so I'm doing that and setting up a business and just trying to, at the moment, it's just taking baby steps. It's always I want to, dive in head first, and I've had to step back and go, actually, there's lots going on, working full-time, children, grandchild, all the things. And so it's like, just take baby steps, just take it slowly and go with the flow a little bit while still trying to kind of create, we spoke about, there is, that fairy tale thing, and I've got this thing about kind of creating my own happily ever after, and it doesn't have to look like, the Cinderella story. It can look completely different, but something where I get to live in alignment with my values and I get to live my passions and
Satisfied.
So, yeah.
So is your life coaching very much about helping people find out their values and their passions and helping them?
Yeah, so my ideal clients are women who have experienced soul shattering adversity and are kind of at that point, you know, for me, it's sometimes really challenging to kind of reach my goals and get the things done that I want to do. You know, I've still got all that imposter syndrome happening. You know, it's like I'm, you know, over 10 years off the streets, away from using, and it's still that imposter syndrome and the stuff that holds me back. So it's just setting goals and taking kind of baby steps toward them, or bigger steps if that's the space that they're in. But just, yeah.
Do you ever get a scenario now that it's been 10 years that younger people might say, what would you know?
No, do you know, no, because I still no, I have conversations with a young person quite regularly, and they ask me things and I'm like, don't ask me that question. You know, I still kind of speak the language. I don't understand all the, like, they talk about caps now and I'm like, caps are anyway, I shouldn't go, but it's different. The language is a bit different. But the feelings are the same, and I'm very much, you know, the conversations aren't in judgmental ways, so it's
Beautiful. Here's a great question. I'll crack you with it, Josh, first, which is, what's the biggest thing you've learned about yourself through your journey from where you were to now?
That I can do the things I didn't think I could do. That I do have support from the people in my life that I was too scared or wasn't sure about, like my family and that. I went through a big stage where shame sort of takes you away from family connections. And one of the big things I've learned is that they were always there for me. I just didn't open my eyes to it. Families are a big thing in life, and to try and go through life without your family, it's like not very easy or good in any way at all. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons, that family's there. And the other big thing would be talk about problems. Problems don't fix themselves on their own. They don't fix themselves with drug use. They don't. You got to talk about it.
You know, when I took over from Graham, his handover notes were less than the size of this piece of paper. Right, he just said, "You got this, big fella." I didn't know what this was, and I didn't know what that was, but one thing he told me, he said, once a year you're going to get a phone call from Josh's mum, right? She never stopped loving you. She never gave up on you for 1 minute. And once a year she's going to give you a call and she'll ask, how's my boy? And it was my job to give her a full report, a yearly report on where you were. And she said, just if you get a chance, just tell him I love him. Tell him I love him. Yeah, good. It's beautiful.
I love them.
Yeah. Then you made her a grandma. So, Liz, what have you learned about yourself?
I had something a moment ago. Purpose and connection. Two most important things in my life are purpose and connection. When I've got something to do, and that's not just sitting there watching Netflix for 10 hours straight, you know, when I've got something to do that there's purpose to it, whether it's something for me or whether it's something for other people, it's so important, and connection, they're just the most important things for me. I think it also, and I think I said this to you on the phone earlier, what Josh said, like talk about what's going on, you know. I'm a big believer in the power of getting the stuff out of your head and speaking about the way you feel, because, you know, so often in life you look around at, you know, the rates of depression and the rates of suicide, and I just think, you know, have conversations, you know. If you're not feeling good, have the conversation with your friend or whoever it is, a worker, a counsellor, the random person on the bus if they want to listen, you know. I'm very much, I'm a very open kind of chronic oversharer, and it actually is really helpful for me, you know, and there's probably a million other things, but yeah.
I mean, they're fantastic, particularly, you know, taking a risk to have conversations is really important, because so often for suicides, we hear that it's, no one knew, and people are bottling everything up and suffering in silence. I have got a question that's, feel free to tell me to get nicked, but how's this? If you... Well, next question.
Don't even ask it.
If you could go back to that kid in the tunnel, what would you say to him?
I'd just sit next to him and say it's okay. I'd tell him it's okay.
It's going to work out in the end.
Yeah.
Please?
Saying it's going to be okay. I wouldn't change any of it. Wouldn't change. There's things, other people I've hurt, that'd be like great if they hadn't been hurt. But for me, I wouldn't change anything because I am who I am today because of my experience.
Makes us who we are.
And it's going to be okay. That's it. Get through.
That's what you need to hear.
That's all there is.
And is that a message that others, people in positions like myself, like me, as the pastor here, but also people who are volunteering with you, what's the sorts of things that they can...
Yeah, I don't think I would have liked someone else saying it. And probably if I actually did go back to my 18-year-old self, I'd just go... and if I said that, I don't know how she'd respond, really. Ask questions, explore deeper. It's not always about kind of imparting wisdom, but exploring deeper because people, quite often they have those answers in there. And so explore that little bit deeper and ask the questions and help them to connect to themselves a little bit more. Because for me, it was all about disconnection. And imagine, if I'd started connecting to the amazing person I was at 18 years old instead of disconnecting from it because I couldn't tap into it. But it was always there. And
we still give all new staff members, when they start a brand new pair of socks, to get to carry with them, and whenever they're tempted to impart wisdom, we tell them to shove that pair of socks in their mouth.
Oh, I love that. Can I just say, socks at Wayside Chapel, people donate socks. You get lots of socks.
Socks and undies, we're always in need of socks.
Because when it rains and your shoes get wet and your feet get wrinkled and you're in these wet shoes and socks for days, donate some socks right now. Just jump on and do a big massive sock order.
You bring them in. I've seen people walking in looking like drowned rats.
Yeah.
And then a fresh pair of socks, a warm towel, a dry pair of brand new undies, and then Chantel giving them what I call the diabetes starter kits. Right? 20 cents.
They've still got, and they're still 20 cents, 20 years later.
Yeah. There should be a sugar tax on those things, but every step of that process says you're loved, and we're here for you, and we're here with you.
And that's what it's about. I remember I think I've only ever said this once before, and I'm a bit like, when I first kind of got off the street and started doing well, I was like, Wayside was great, but they enable people too much. They're there and they have this space and it makes it easier for people to stay there. And it's like, a couple of years later, I was like, they kept me alive. Yeah. They loved me and they supported me and they gave me a safe space. And it's like there was no enabling, and it's like no, it was just a space to come. Because imagine if Wayside wasn't here, where would people be? I spent so many Christmas days, Christmas days at Wayside Chapel because I felt like there was nowhere else to be. I had a family I could have gone to, like Josh, I think, But this was my place.
But you were telling yourself there was no way you could connect with them, so. You just made me cry.
Yeah, I'm watching. I'm like, yes, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. You've got to connect.
Oh wow! Thank you.
When you said they kept me alive, I thought about Chantel's breakfast bowl porridge.
Chantel just shoves food, and everything she shoves at you is saying, "I love you." Can I just, hundreds of kids she gives presents.
Can I just take a moment to publicly apologise? So one morning, I'd been up potentially for days, and we weren't supposed to sleep here, and she'd come in early in the morning, and I just got to sleep, and she woke me up. And I got very angry, and I went and I bent her number plate on her car. And I denied it. I don't think she actually watched me do it, and I denied it. And so if you're watching, I think I have apologised, but I need to do it publicly. And she still loves me. She still does,
She's awesome.
And that's
well, it's
like
November,
that forgiveness.
It's late November, so Chantel's already dressed up
Christmas.
for Christmas.
Yes.
I've had to tell her 16 times you can't set up the Christmas tree
Yes, you can.
until December.
Oh, listen, it's 2021. You can set up the Christmas
and the
tree.
Christmas cave is in full force. The Christmas cave. And she gets all the toys and all the presents, and she says, just bring them to me. And she gets in the car and she drives them across Sydney.
I remember we used to go downstairs in the old building and there'd just be toys, all bags, and it was exciting stuff.
So, as we lead up to Christmas, that might be a good way. Tell me, what difference does that make when Chantel hands you a present that someone's donated to you?
People care.
Yeah. It's just happiness.
Yeah.
It's like happiness is something that you don't get to feel often when you're rock bottom in life. And it's the little things that make you happy. And for that little moment that you're happy, the dramas aren't in your mind. For that little, doesn't matter how short a time it is. The dramas up the street are gone.
Yeah.
You guys are making me cry again.
Do you know, I still remember, and it wasn't here, but when I was 16 years old, I was at a youth refuge, and it was my first Christmas, on the streets. I was staying at the refuge, and I still remember I got this watch and this brown tracksuit with a blue stripe down there, and I was I've been sleeping on the streets for a few months, and I was like, and I still remember exactly what that tracksuit looks like 20-something years later, because it was just... No, it wasn't. It was this the cheap material-y but it looked great, it felt good. It was who's these people that are donating this stuff? Who cares about us? Who cares about me? I'm just some person on the street, and I'm, delinquent teenager.
We get overwhelmed with such beautiful expressions of generosity where people have put together little kits and bags, and you can see the love that's contained in each one of them. They're quite beautiful, and you open them up and they're Lynx Africa and a pair of socks. Everyone's like, yes, this is the most amazing. It's wonderful. Helen O'Sullivan has got a question. Let's see. I would like to ask Liz and Josh, when you decided you want to change your life, did you find the help you needed easily? And what else can we as a society or a community provide for people who are in your situation, besides Wayside, of course? That's a great question. Thanks, Helen.
I think I found the help I needed pretty easily, only because I've been lingering around for so long helping others that I knew where to get the help once I decided that I was ready to accept help for myself. But
we're very much like that here, eh? We're not going to push you, but the moment you're ready, we'll just jump behind you.
You just push people away.
Yeah.
And then
well said.
They're on their own, no one knows where they are, what's happening, who cares about their well-being then? I had a friend die years ago, and he'd been in this area for a bit, and I wish he was still here. But when he left, I think it was 2.5 weeks before anyone found his body, where he'd overdosed. It's no one even checked on him, where he'd been camping. Whereas here, everyone checks on you, people care about you. If you don't turn up one day, people come looking for you, make sure you're alright. I've had people come up the park panicking because I didn't turn up at Wayside one morning for a shower and that. It was only because I'd slept in, but everyone's like, is he okay? What was the question? I'm getting off track.
No, that's
sorry.
No, you're right, but we do check because we love it. Every time I leave here to say goodbye to go home, I don't know if I'm going to see someone the next day because of how tough it is out there. So, it's. If I get calls, hey, have you seen him? Let's go find him. So off we go, hit the streets.
I'd say at least half of my good friends that I was hanging out with on the streets are dead from overdoses.
Yeah. We're looking at that poster over there, and so many faces who we've loved and now lost. Please.
Do you know, there were a couple of times that I decided I wanted to change my life, and a couple of those times, as I tried to help me, I remember Elma sneaking me out a back door once down the lane so I could leave someone out the front and go home to my mum's, and you know, and then however long later I was back again, and you know, wanting to go to rehab, and Wayside driving me there and paying my first 2 weeks rent, and 2 days later I'm like, back, you know, and it's like, it's not like you can't come here for 2 weeks, it's just like, okay, you know, like, that's okay. And look, for me, when it was kind of really like, no, I'm done, you know, like I had a moment where it was just like, I'm going to die up here. Like, I just had this, I'm going to die up here moment. Like, I was 26, almost 26 years old, and you know, I just went, I'm not going to survive. And I, you know, and I rang my mum, and she let me come home, and it was actually quite challenging for me. I was on methadone, and to stay with my mum, she said I had to come off methadone. I was like, people don't get off methadone. What are you talking about? Like, laughed at her, stood there. I still remember standing there like, people don't get off methadone, you know. And she told me I had to stay there, and I had to. I'm like listening to you before saying you did it here. I'm like, no, I could not have done that.
2 weeks out the front.
Oh,
It was horrible.
I just, you know,
I don't recommend it.
No chance for me.
Watch the decking, I don't recommend it through me.
Yeah. So I went to rehab, and it took me time to get in there. You know, I got on a waiting list, and I had to make the phone calls. And if I hadn't had my mum's support, I wouldn't have got in there, because there's like, you know, there's spreadsheets full of names, and there's not enough funding for treatment, and there's, you know, all these things. And so, I mean, the part of the question, I think, was what can we do? And it's like, more funding.
We don't have enough rehabs
advocate.
that are accessible for the people who are ready to go to rehab.
No.
There was only a few times throughout my drug addictions when I was ready and wanted to quit.
Yeah.
And at those times, like the last time when I didn't plan it, it's just something that happened. But previously there'd been a few occasions when I wanted to and I was ready to, but I couldn't get into rehabs at those points in time. They're all getting used up by people getting sent to rehabs by judges and stuff.
Yeah, right,
and
rehabs.
they're just going to go to rehab to keep the judge happy, get out and get back on the drugs because they're not ready.
Yeah.
They're not at that point in their life where they want to turn it around.
Mm-hmm.
And then
So
they've got the
that-
private
that
ones that
makes
cost
sense.
money.
And now we're running out of time because we've already done that, because we could talk forever. Liz, you are one of the spokespeople for the Fair Treatment campaign.
Yes.
Particularly focusing right now on decriminalisation of use and possession, which is one of the recommendations and findings.
Yeah.
Let's finish with give us that spiel, that wisdom.
Oh, look, do you know what? It's an absolute no-brainer. When you look at the evidence, for every $1 spent on treatment, $7 is saved.
Yeah.
If you don't care enough about people's health, people's well-being, people's quality of life, to go, let's change the laws, then just look at the money that will be saved.
Yeah.
I just go, take everything else off the table and go, hey, look at the money the country will save. But I just, you know, criminalising people for doing things that seems like a really natural thing for people to do, because most people try substances in their life. Yeah. And most people drink alcohol, you know, and the only difference between alcohol and another drug is that alcohol's legal. Yeah. And so, change the laws, you know, work.
That's great. So the campaign is around decriminalisation of use and possession, particularly focusing on the fact that there's proposed legislation to exclude ice and heroin from that. We're saying include it. Let's treat drugs as a health issue and not a criminal.
It's not a criminal problem.
100%.
You cannot fix the drug problems with law.
Yeah.
Busting someone is not going to help them get off drugs. Medical approach will. It's just facts. Like,
and I'm a person who used heroin, and I'm a person who used ice. And, you know, I'm a good person, and it didn't matter what the substance was. Yeah. You know, it's
I've been to jail. I didn't have trouble getting drugs in jail. Yeah. It doesn't help. Straight up.
It makes it worse sometimes.
Yeah, there you go. So you're treating them with jail and more drugs. Any last words from you guys? It's been amazing tonight.
No, thank you, John.
Well, thank you.
We love you. You're awesome, and you do a good job.
Stop calling me at 5:30 just to yell at me off the bus.
Great to catch up.
Me too. No, I think I think that's it. I think we've it was great. It was really nice to be able to come in and have some purpose in my life. So thank you.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for the privilege of seeing you.
Oh, I feel like just too emotional. Thank you. That's just, you guys.
I can't believe how quiet Zenith was the whole time.